Yeah, I believe in you. I don't believe in lucky sevens. I'm not sure about Loch Ness, but I know I believe in angels. I believe in happiness.
Oh, I love it. Thank you, Platinum Planet Records and Justin Peters, for that intro. This is the news. Welcome. So I have a special guest, the guest that comes to the show every Saturday from Vista Front Partners, JC Schweingrouber. How are you? I totally, my lips were not moving on that name.
No, I'm doing great. How are you doing today, Elizabeth?
I'm doing great. So, oh boy, were you buckled in for that wild ride on the stock market this week?
It was a wild ride. I mean, you're not going to find anything. You're not going to find a better roller coaster in Disney. This was fun. So, well, for me it was, but yeah, it was a lot of up and down. We started off the week down like 1,100 points the first day, and then rallied all the way back. And then the second day down about 800 points, and then rallied almost. Well, actually, we almost rallied all the way back on Monday. Tuesday we actually did, and then it was just up and down, topsy-turvy since then. Not as bad as Monday and Tuesday, but still just everywhere. So I guess my question is for all the folks out there with 401ks, I hope you were buckled in and just confident in your strategy and just letting it ride. That's the important thing, how everybody else is handling it. But I have fun during those because I think I've talked to you before. When the market is that crazy and that down, you have no choice but to go in and, like, if you own good stocks, good companies, they just went on sale. Go buy more. That's if you like a pair of shoes at $120, you're gonna love them at $75. Right? It's a discount. So that's the way I approach it, and that was the week. I don't think I sold one thing, but I sure did some buying.
And so many people were saying what you've said over the past couple of weeks, because it's been pretty crazy since the first of the year. That, even on mainstream news and in media this week, a lot of people were saying, just remain calm. Don't sell off what you have, but definitely buy low. Did you have a lot of your clients that decided to go ahead and take advantage of the market?
Well, where I have discretionary authority of my clients' accounts, so so I make those decisions for them, and they pay me the annual fee. So that way they don't have to worry about things. I have to worry about things. They know somebody's got their money in crazy times and taking care of it. So that's kind of what they pay me for. So I think, but the clients, I do like to call clients and let them know, hey, I know the market's crazy. You're probably seeing this in the news. We're on it. We're taking advantage of these times. We're adding to some good positions. So, it's so I was in there buying for clients this week. So that was a good thing. Like you said, don't, if you're confident and you own good things, don't sell, because you don't lose anything until the day you hit that trigger and sell. So you pull the trigger and sell. You haven't lost anything. But times like these, it's rare opportunities. And year to date, the markets are down quite a bit. I think the Nasdaq's down almost 10% just from the first of the year, maybe a little close to that. And it's I think some of those high multiple stocks, those tech stocks, and they kind of run away in value for a while. People are selling those and taking profits, and so. With all that's going on in the world right now, it's going to be choppy. We're probably going to have to get used to some volatility here for the short term, and that's okay. It's a great time to anybody, if you don't have an investable account, to open one. If you're setting all in cash, it's a great time to start thinking about putting that cash to work. Get your shopping list, and let's put the money to work, because you don't invest for the next 10 days. You're investing for the next 10 years. And so it's important to kind of keep that in mind. And I think I mentioned something to you, one of my favorite quotes about picking good companies and picking good investments. if you're not willing to hold something for 10 years, if it's not something you would hold for 10 years, probably shouldn't hold it for 10 minutes.
I like that.
Yeah.
Yes, you've advised on that point before, and that's a really good, strong point. What do you think, or do you agree with some of the analysis that's out there saying that with the Feds announcing that they are definitely raising rates, how much do you think that influenced this past week?
A lot of that was probably already baked in, but I think they did make an impact because when they came out, they've been using a little tougher language because before they were all very dovish. Let's keep rates low. And then they choreographed to people, hey, we're going to be doing some rate hikes in 2020, probably 4 of them. And so if they do incremental rate hikes, so the market can kind of get prepared for that. Investors can get prepared for that, and companies can. But when they start using like a little tougher language, like inflation is a little bit more out of control than we thought, and we may have to be more aggressive with our tactics. And so then that throws a little bit of a scare. So maybe, so that was probably part of this week, some of the language that had changed. And like I said, we're going to be like this for a little while. So there are going to be 4 or 5 key elements that I'm going to be looking for in the market that need to happen before, I guess, the bears stop roaring and the bulls start charging again, so to speak. You'll always find some bull market inside of a overall bear market. You always pick and choose and find some good things that'll do well regardless. But there are 4 or 5 key points that I'll be looking for over the next handful of weeks to see how that changes, and then how quickly we'll probably transition from everybody panicking and how long. Well, actually, I look at it as how long this buying opportunity will last, how long the sale is on for. So, but we'll see.
And what are those key elements? Can you tell us?
Yeah. Right now we're starting earnings season. So this is when companies start reporting their revenues and, earnings per share and your year-over-year sales and how they've done comparatively since last year. So when you see a lot of these companies that report, either they beat on earnings and revenue or they miss on earnings and revenue. And usually they stay fairly close to where the estimates were. But I want to see this a really tightening up of the number of surprises, because either they beat the market and it was a surprise beat. In other words, they way overshot what expectations were, or they were expected to meet a certain expectation and they way underperformed and no one's seen it coming. So you have those surprises, and we're starting to see a little bit more of those the last couple of quarters. And I want to see that really tighten up, just to kind of get back to some more normalcy. And I know a lot of this has to do with supply chain and inflation right now. That's the 2 key elements we've talked about the last few shows. But so that's one thing that I need to see. Another, actually, I jotted some notes. Well, here's the thing that's hit the news this week and the last couple of weeks. All the geopolitical mess in the East. So we're seeing, Russian troops on the Ukrainian border, and then our officials kind of getting a little bit more loud and boisterous about, well, there's gonna be consequences, and we don't know what America's involvement is going to be in trying to defend Ukraine, if any. Will it be just financial, as in sanctions, or are we willing to send more troops over to NATO territory? Even though Ukraine isn't a NATO ally, there's so many complicated things going on there. Not just that, but we have the Olympics starting in China. And if China is, after the Olympics, if they see, political weakness from us and Russia gets away with whatever they want to do in Ukraine, are they going to make a move on Taiwan? Because they've been flying a whole lot more ships over or planes around Taiwan lately, really antagonistic.
Yeah.
And of course, North Korea just popped off a couple of more missiles for the first time in a while. So there's a lot of, international tension out there, I guess, testing a new president, right, to see what they can get away with. So that's another thing that I would kind of want to see settle down. But probably the 3 biggest things, I want to see a little bit more dovish language from the Federal Reserve. Not that they're not going to raise rates. I just want to hear the language change a little bit. Like, hey, we've got it under control now. And we're, we have a handle on where inflation's going, how long it's going to take to rein it back in, because it did get out of control and it's going to be here for a little while.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to be dealing with it for maybe a year or two, and that's not going to be fun. So, but I want to see some better language from them that they're a little bit more in control of it. The purchasers managing index, that's at some point their supplies, or they're ordering less and less supplies, almost like a reaction, like maybe a recessionary reaction. And I don't want to use the R word because that's almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy, but we'll probably feel like it with all the inflation. That may bottom out maybe about April. So I'm going to be watching that pretty closely. And the money supply, when the Fed raises rates, basically what they're doing is sucking the money supply out of the economy to bring prices back down. Mm-hmm. And with so much stimulus that we put in since Corona, we haven't done just like a basic stimulus package. We've done 4 major stimulus packages, all over $1 trillion each. And you cannot throw that much money out into an economy without expecting something like that to happen. And this week, even our economy came back in. Our GDP, quarterly GDP, came in at 6.9%, or maybe it was 6.7. I forgot, but unbelievably high.
Yeah.
So that's another reason why the Fed took more aggressive language. Like, ooh, this is, this didn't mean to heat it up that much, so let's talk it down a little. But what needs to happen is the money supply that's held by the public, like you and I take our dollars out and we spend, that needs to bottom out. And that's the money supply. When you read about it in news articles, you'll see it referred to as M2, mm-hmm. M2 money supply. Now, we can certainly do that from the angle of our Federal Reserve, but again, it's a small world. And we have a huge trading partner with China. And China is consistently a money manipulator, a currency manipulator. Mm-hmm. Have been for a long time. So they're actually, we're starting to see weakness in their economy over there now. But we need to see their currency weaken, so our dollar gets stronger. And I don't know if a lot of people realize this, but China is, and I was reading this week, China is, I think it was 37% of global money supply in dollar terms. That's a bunch. So that needs to change. Mm-hmm. So we need to see the Chinese yuan weaken, mm-hmm. and the dollar value, US dollar, go up. And what that'll do, that'll lead to I guess at least a global and supply in terms of the dollar to go down. So look for a weaker yuan is what I'm saying, a little weaker Chinese currency. Mm-hmm. So when you get those 3 things, the Fed's action, see a weaker Chinese currency, and let's see the language change. That'll be very important. But I'm also going to be watching to see what that PMI index is, the Purchasers Managing Index, and see that it bottoms out in April timeframe, April, May, and hopefully that'll signal maybe a turnaround to get the bulls charging back on Wall Street. So right. Maybe a little choppy then until that moment. Doesn't mean it's going to go down a lot or any. It just means the bears are more likely to keep charging until we see some of these things start to happen.
What is your opinion? This is a little bit of a random question, a little bit. Each time that we go into a form of recession, our precious metals rise in worth. And you all of a sudden, last time we went through the housing market fall and a recession of, what was it, about 2008?
Yeah.
On every street corner, everywhere you went here in the Atlanta area, there was a gold broker. Bring us your gold. What is your opinion in this state of affairs where, let's face it, we have potential massive global unrest. We have issues here with supply and demand and inflation of just about every product you can imagine. So to me, someone who's uneducated, I look at that and say, I should prepare myself for a potential recession, a hardcore recession. Do you have any of your clients call you to get advice to say, should I be buying gold or silver and holding on to that instead of taking maybe the several $1,000s I have to transfer over to you to then invest into the markets? Like, what should I do?
Well, it depends on what kind of portfolio somebody already has. I don't think it's ever a bad idea for investors, all investors, to have a little bit of their portfolio in gold and silver. So there are different ways that you can do that, though. Now, if you want to go have like gold coins or bullion, that's going to cost you a little bit more. Not only do you have to have the shipping, but you have to have the storage, especially if you're getting the bullion or the bars, right? Instead of the coins. So it's a little bit more costly, and you can call those gold brokers that you see on TV that are advertised on AM radio and a lot of talk show radio. And you can certainly do that. That's a little bit more expensive. Also, if you need to sell it, you need to go find some place to sell it. So you're kind of stuck holding it, you know. But gold is a great hedge against inflation. Now, has it lived up to the promise of what a lot of people hyped it up to? No, it hasn't, because it's traded within a range. Even with inflation kicking in, I mean, gold prices were down this week, which, I mean, sometimes it just doesn't make sense. But it's one of these things. If you're going to hold gold, people want to hold it for a long time, regardless of what the economy is. They're going to hold some level of gold. Now, if you don't want to go through the expense of that, and then, the storage and whatnot, and some of the expenses that come along with holding physical gold, you can buy what's called an ETF, an exchange traded fund. Mm-hmm. And different companies will put those out where you can actually have it trades like a stock. So you could buy, like the GLD, for example. That's a symbol, GLD, for gold. And you can buy that, and it'll actually track the price of gold for you. So if you need to get out of it by the end of the day, it's a very liquid commodity. It's a very liquid asset. You can just go and trade it on the exchange. Just place the trade like you would any other stock you're buying or selling. And boom, it's gone. It's out of your portfolio. And you don't have to worry about all the storage expenses and things like that. You can buy it as just as a tracking stock. Same thing with silver, with the SLV. So that's an option as well. Just depends on, do you want the money to be liquid if you need to get rid of it quickly? Mm-hmm. Because if the price of gold, you buy it at a certain price, and if it goes up and you want to get rid of it, you can go to a gold broker or somewhere that can buy your gold. Now, if you go to some of the people on the corner, they're not going to give you the fair price that you would get from the gold broker you'd buy it from. Sure. So they're going to give you less, percentage less, because they got to make money too. Because I remember those were popping up all over the place back then here as well. And people were finding old jewelry they never wore, right, class rings they never wore, and took them and pretty much sold their items. But it's never a bad idea to have some of those as a hedge of inflation. Now, you can never guarantee what's going to have more upside, but I do like silver more than I like gold, because silver has a lot more, I guess, commercial use. Mm-hmm. It's used in different items that are made, and so that's an option too. But again, it's one of these things you're probably going to have as a portfolio, just as a hedge. 5% of your portfolio, maybe 10 at most. Another thing that people are talking about to hedge against inflation, I'll just throw this out there, are the cryptocurrencies. Now, I know these are wildly volatile, and I don't necessarily look at them as a hedge against inflation, but some advisors have been using it that way. And Bitcoin, for example, has just recently cut its price in half. I mean, it's been so volatile, it's trading down into the $35,000 range, where it used to be up close to 60. Wow. But you got it with something like that, you just got to have some stomach to, like on that roller coaster. Mm-hmm. You're going to be up and down, up and down, up and down. And there's a couple of ETFs you can buy on those too. If you don't want to buy physical coins, you can buy ETFs and trade those like you would the gold and silver. Mm-hmm. And there's a couple of different ones, and they operate a little bit differently. So if you're interested in any of those, call your advisor. If you want to talk to me, contact me through the website or call me up, and we'll talk about the two major different kinds of Bitcoin ETFs, so you kind of understand what you're buying. One's very different than the other.
I'm sure you've had to do a crash course on that, huh?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not an expert on crypto, but it's trying to catch up and learn, because it's the whole blockchain technology behind it that's really the most important thing. And so am I still learning? Yeah, about that, but am I comfortable enough if somebody has a very aggressive strategy and wants to dip their toe in Bitcoin or one of these ETFs? Yeah, I mean, I know which one I would choose over the other. So I actually, since it's cut in half, I did a little buying on that this week too. For folks who are comfortable with that kind of, aggressive, it's a little bit of a, I don't want to call it speculative because I think cryptos are here to stay, but it's it's a wild ride. so, small percentage, nothing major in somebody's portfolio, but if it's something that's 1%, you want to just play with it, see where it goes, and then that's fine.
I feel like such an old dog when it comes to crypto of trying to teach it a new trick, because I'm glad I have somebody like you in my back pocket helping me along the way. Because man, there's so many things that we wind up doing in our daily process that's one of those things that came on board. I had a bunch of people in the beginning saying, "Oh, you got to invest in this." And I'm like, but what is it? And I'm still kind of sitting here going, but what is it? But that's really interesting to go ahead and grab some of that while it's low as well. So what about the future? How do you see this month closing out going into the 1st of February?
We got another trading day. I guess we have another trading day on Monday, but it's kind of hard to tell. What I'll do is I nerd out at night. I go watch Bloomberg just to see what the international markets are doing, the Chinese markets, Australia, Singapore, all that over there, Hong Kong. And then it'll also give you the US futures. And then I was like, hey, our futures look great. We're up 300 points on the futures. So that means that indicates how you might open up, right? But that doesn't matter. It's like I can wake up the next day and we'll be down 500 on the futures the next morning. So I really try not, with this kind of volatility, it's really hard to say. I just feel that my gut says we're going to have volatility here for probably another month or so. Maybe not as bad as we've seen this week, because that was pretty volatile, but because you don't always get that kind of volatility. But this whole month has been kind of trending downward, and we do see stocks still trending downward until I guess we get kind of that froth out of the market that we had. We built up so much excess, gains, especially on high flyers like your Teslas, your Apples, your Netflix, Microsoft, and but even Netflix started to turn around a little bit this week too. So the cheaper they get, the more they look like they're getting back toward fair value. So they can get toward fair value, and that's great, but it doesn't mean it's going to stop and start trading only at fair value. The market can still trend down. It can overshoot the other way, which it usually does, just like it overshoots on the way up. But that's why it's important to look at some of those other signs that are indicative, like the Fed language, that purchasers managing index, what the actual money supply. I know nobody wants to go in and look at the government money supply numbers, but I mean, you hear some people talk about them on like Fox Business and CNBC and Bloomberg. But when we see some of those things, and we'll probably settle down, hopefully, a little bit with what's going on over in Ukraine, because it seems like the Ukrainians are still out having dinner, and they like, we see this all the time out of the Russians. But I don't, so I don't know. We'll see how that all plays out. But I think if we talked about what's called a black swan event before.
No, I don't believe that we have.
Okay, a black swan event is like an event that comes out of nowhere that really no one sees coming, that rocks the market. Okay, a prime example would be 9/11. Out of the blue, and then we saw what happened to the markets following that. Took a couple of years to stabilize in the stock market. Now the economy, we went to a little recession, but we came out of that, and the economy started doing really well during those years too. And those are some pretty good years. But another event would be the housing crash that you and I talked about. That sort of, that housing bubble when it burst, and then just the leverage a year and a half later that all these companies like Countrywide, you remember they used to exist, right? And the Bank of America had to buy Morgan Stanley, I think. And there was another big bank, and I forgot the name of it, but they collapsed. I mean, so you had Bear Stearns and Lehman Brothers that went under, two major icons. So that was horrible. Like nobody saw that coming. Well, they should have seen it coming in hindsight, but there were so many signs that was coming. And there's a really great movie out there if anybody wants to watch it. If you can stomach the bad language, it's called The Big Short, and it's got Christian Bale in it. I'm trying to think of the guy's name. He was in that movie, The 40-Year-Old Virgin. That guy, he's been in a lot of things.
Oh,
But
yes.
he was in that, and there's some familiar faces in it. You'll see Ryan Gosling, I think, is in it.
Right. That came out in 2015. So we have Christian Bale, Steve Carell, Ryan Gosling, Brad Pitt. Man, big billable cast. Yeah, that was a good movie.
Yeah, but it did a really good job of explaining exactly what happened to cause that. And it's funny how history repeats itself. Now you start to see some of these other mortgage tied in, like different types of mortgages. It just doesn't make sense. It's not healthy. But hopefully people have learned from it and not buy those things like they did before. But that movie is a great example of what happened then. So if anybody wants to watch that, if you have the stomach for F-bombs everywhere, then but it's a really educational movie, I thought. But those are types of things that come out of nowhere. So is there a black swan event on the horizon? You never know. Anything can pop up that could rock the markets short term that you don't see coming. So is this Ukraine thing one, or China trying to take Taiwan all of a sudden? Because that would rock us pretty hard, because all of our semiconductor industry is over there. We should have had it here 20 years ago. So, that impacts everything from computers being made, cars being sold with these computer chips that are in them. I mean, you would rock half of America's industries by taking out the semiconductor industry. You would really hamper our economy horribly.
Absolutely.
And they know it.
Right.
So, but the crazy thing, I don't know what they think in political terms, geopolitical terms, but if we start moving that sector out back here, do they take it as a sign we're giving them permission to take Taiwan?
It's really scary.
Yeah.
It's really scary to sit there and watch the news and wonder what inadvertently are we showing our weakness and somewhat giving permission to do. It's quite scary. I do have a question, though, about the housing market. So I know here in the Southeast, we have seen a major boom of people moving to Nashville area, to Atlanta, to Florida. And so our housing market is super inflated. My house went, from the estimate of 18 months ago to the estimate of today, we're talking about a $300,000 to $400,000 swing. What do you foresee as far as, it just seems like it's inevitable, that bubble is going to burst and it's going to be ugly?
Yeah, I think you're right. The problem is these housing prices have gone up so much, and even if you'd love to sell your house, well, where the heck are you going to move to?
Right.
Because there's such a shortage of places to move to, and even like apartments and 2-family homes, even those things, the prices are getting kind of out of range of what people can afford in the middle income or lower middle income. So it's kind of squeezing. You're kind of squeezing at both ends there, and I don't like where that's going. So there's some that said, I guess I feel like I was reading something a little while back, and maybe it was Citigroup, something, private bank, Citibank, that had talking about trends, how those prices were going to have to either trend back down, or we're going to have to see more housing being built. And well, with inflation, how are you going to see more housing being built?
Right.
Because the price of lumber and the other cost of goods involved, it's just pushing those prices up even more. So, yeah, I just, there could be stagflation in that particular industry where everybody's just kind of stuck.
Yeah.
People that want to sell a home suddenly can't all of a sudden. Because even here, you lived near Atlanta. I'm in a rural area, and the closest city to me, I live between Roanoke, Virginia, and Knoxville, Tennessee. So I'm like right in the middle, and that's several hours apart, And housing prices in certain areas have gone up here too. Even a family member of mine was looking at the value of her house, and it went up quite a bit, but there's nowhere to move to if you sell it.
I know. And that's exactly, I think everybody who owns a house, who bought a house in now what looks like that sweet spot. So it's the 2016, 2017 timeframe. We're seeing huge increase in value. And people are bidding over asking. So people are putting their houses on the current estimated value, which is inflated. And then there's such a mad rush. Even still, like I figured that would die off in about 6 months. No, it's still going really, really strong. And I think it's going to be quite interesting. I don't know that it's going to be a soft fall. Especially in our area, you're absolutely right. Lumber prices have quadrupled, and that's probably an underestimate. And then certain items that builders can't find. I was reading an article recently where they said that they were handing over the keys. They were going to closing with some of these brand new houses being built, and there's no garage doors. They're having to build temporary garage doors because they can't get that item. It's like 18 months out back ordered. So
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
The thing with real estate is, it's all regional. It's all, each market is very localized. And not too long ago, I was talking to a gentleman who owns a construction company in Frankfort, Kentucky, where my office is. And he was talking about how he still has no shortage of business to build. Mm-hmm. But the problem is, Frankfort, it's a state capital, but you don't have the highest per capita income. Like it's really right between Louisville, Kentucky and Lexington, Kentucky. Mm-hmm. And then Lexington is not far from Cincinnati, so you have these big cities and you have the higher incomes and more disposable income, coming out of those areas. So he has people who are kind of looking to get out of the cities, especially since the pandemic, that are moving a little closer to Frankfort, which is, again, not that far. We're talking 30 minutes down the road. So they're still close to work. It's not that bad of a drive, and they're able to afford to build it. So they're actually, the housing prices surrounding the city are all going up, and the housing prices in the city itself, city limits, are staying like capped.
Right.
They're not going up anymore, but there's no opportunity for them to go down to be more affordable for people in Frankfort, which is a real problem. Because people in Frankfort, they're staying in Frankfort. And so unless you live out near the country club, which I know some people live out there, you're not. It's literally on the country club, mm-hmm. and it's you're not really having any opportunity to easily buy or sell.
Right. I have a friend of mine, and he's fairly financially savvy, and he decided, he's like, you know what, I could take this $150,000 and invest it, or I can go out to rural areas where they're beginning to build out some of these HOA properties and buy just plats of land and just hold on to it. Because, of course, we saw what had happened. And so he did this last year. And he's like, everybody's going to get the heck out of the cities, especially the poorly run cities at the moment, because people don't want to be there. Like there's major, major problems. There's major problems in downtown Atlanta. And everybody has heard, possibly nationwide, because it's kind of a big thing, but possibly not. Maybe it's just regional. So we have our most elite section where the governor's mansion is and everything. It's called Buckhead. And Buckhead is just north of the city of Atlanta. Well, they're trying to succeed out of Fulton County, which would be huge because they carry Fulton County. The money that comes out of that one specific area is so huge that Atlanta is like, they're running scared. They don't know what to do. And they're most likely going to be able to succeed out. And the crime has increased tenfold in those areas. So all these huge, true mansions, not the neighborhoods on a golf course that have McMansions, true mansions are all in Buckhead. And it's like, it's a huge amount of revenue, huge amount of retail revenue. I mean, it's massive. So there is a huge influx, especially in this area, where people are moving farther and farther and farther out. We're not confined by any natural barriers. And fairly same to you, Virginia, you start to get close to the ocean, so you do have that barrier. But going out towards you, it just seems like you're going to see a boom of building once some of these costs come down, if they come down. So in the beginning, 6 months ago, lumber went through the roof and there was really no reason for it at the time. So
Yeah.
a lot of the builders said, fine, forget about it. We're just going to stop building. And one of the largest home builders, do you remember which one it was? It wasn't Bowen Properties, was it? Or
There's Lennar Homes, KB.
yeah, or Pulte, or one of the big home builders. They said, forget about it. And then so a couple of them followed suit too. They're like, no, we've already sold these houses. We can't, go back and increase it to be able to cover this extreme cost. So lumber fell right back down. And now it's risen again. It's going to be really interesting, I think.
Yeah, maybe after a couple of rate hikes, and if we see that language change from the Fed, it's still extremely high levels on these houses, but at some point they're going to have to taper off because they're not going to have any buyers. So maybe after a couple of rate hikes, maybe late summer, we'll start to see some of that begin to taper off toward more normal levels. And I'm always kind of like pulling for the underdog. So it's like, I hope those housing prices and rental prices can come down enough that people on that lower income, middle class, lower end, and even those are in the poor folks can start to see something they can afford that's not run down. It's basically we all, I think we all deserve a decent place to live, raise kids, so hopefully we'll see that come down, and that's a tough place to be. As far as real estate investing, you can still invest in some of these companies like you mentioned, the larger companies that do residential. There's all kinds of real estate investment trusts that people can look out to that aren't just residential. They may not deal with residential. They may deal with office space leasing or like mini shopping centers or healthcare. There's all these healthcare REITs that are out there, and some of them pay some really good dividends. I'm talking somewhere between anywhere from on the low end like 3.5%, which is much better than the 10-year Treasury right now at 1.8. But I've seen some that don't fluctuate a whole lot in price, but will still pay you 8% dividend yield. So that's not bad at all.
Right.
That's good.
So in this type of market, is it worth it to go after the penny stocks?
No. I treat penny stocks like just going out there and trying to play the lottery. You can buy a lottery ticket. I'm going to lose $2.
Exactly.
And if you're lucky, if you're really, really lucky, you won't lose $2. No, I really never dabble in those. Now, a friend of mine just has fun with them. He goes out and he'll buy them, and he just knows it's play money. He's going to lose it anyway, and then maybe one of them might strike. But no, I never really dabbled in those.
I think there was some excitement in it with the cannabis industry coming, into sight, and now that just seems like it's so flooded.
Yeah, it kind of has getting flooded. We'll probably see some consolidation in that sector because it is. I don't want to say it's a mature industry now, but let's just say it's in the market now. And as it grows, it's going to take a while to be mature. Now, it's been in Canada for quite a while, like with companies like Canopy and Tilray up there. And now that some states have loosened up and you can do this here, there's a lot of potential there if it's something that somebody wants to invest in. Now, you're going to make a lot of short-term money. Is it going to be like a pop like Bitcoin? No. You're going to be holding it for a long time. Yeah. But there's a lot of room to grow. I mean, really, what are we dealing with? Like a third of the states now? But can you imagine the other 2/3 eventually will open up? And I kind of look at it like, how did alcohol do in alcohol? Beer sales, and when the whole country opened up and you had all that opportunity, and then when the microbrews started popping up after Jimmy Carter changed the law and let people brew at home and started making their own regional craft beers, and how that grew. It took a while for that to grow, and so it's kind of similar. If you have a long-term time horizon, and don't mind some of the ups and downs, and just like you're not gonna buy something that has revenue stream. The sales, right? You don't just go buy anything, but research and maybe pick your top 2 or 3, and it's if you're willing to hold it for a while.
Okay, well, thank you for that. So, do you have any tips to leave us with?
Yeah, everybody's doing their taxes. If you get a tax return back, and first of all, if you need to pay down debt, you have a credit card, pay that sucker down.
Mhm.
But don't forget, always pay yourself first, whether it's in your 401k or 403b. Make sure you're withholding something there. And if you get anything back on your tax return, it's a great time to add to an IRA or start an IRA, especially young folks. Um, and make sure you do your homework, do your research. If you need help, call somebody that can help you. You can always touch base with me. We're at vistafrontpartners.com. You can email me directly at jc at vistafrontpartners.com.
Mhm.
And my phone number is there on the website too. Actually, we have a Facebook page where I put up some interesting links, articles from time to time that we think some people might want to read. Our phone number is on there as well, and email address. So you're welcome to contact us and tell us a little bit about what's going on with you. Doesn't cost a dime to have a conversation. So that's where it starts.
And the Facebook page to be able to read those articles, is it Vista Front Partners?
Yeah, facebook.com/Vistafront Partners.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, JC. This has been really, really informative. As always, I absolutely love having you on the show to do the news, the financial report, and give us advice and suggestions. You're always spot on. Like, you're good.
Well, I appreciate it. I've been in this business for quite a long time. People that know me, just to give you a little background, those that don't. And I'm sending you right now the link on Facebook to our page. When I was in high school, which God, a long time ago, I graduated in '92. I remember watching CNBC and like watching that ticker tape and like, what is that? And I realized people were making money with every handful of pennies that were different each price. Wow, that was kind of fascinating. So I was always really fascinated with the market. So I got into majoring in economics and learning as much as I could about that, and went on to grad school studying international econ. And basically, I didn't need to go that depth into economics, but I was just kind of nerd-like. I could have went into finance or whatever. But I ended up working my first job out of grad school, even though I did plenty of jobs between then. My first job out of graduate school was with a brokerage company. And just I learned the hard way in this business. This is the worst. Like anybody who gets in the business at the worst time, that was me. I got in late '98, early '99 with that particular company. Had my little office there in Radford, Virginia, and I'm working to build up clientele. At that time, interest rates were about 6%. So people could come to me, which is really high for interest rates. So people would come to me and they would want to buy a CD, a bank CD, right? 6%. Well, I didn't make money off CDs and I have to pay rent. So, but I would sell these people CDs and nothing sexy. It's great for them because they held on for 10 years and when rates went to rock bottom. But, that was right when the tech bubble burst. And if those of you who don't remember that, just go back and do a Google on that. Everything collapsed. Anything with a .com turned into a .bomb. I remember that. Wow. And all the brokers at the time were trying to sell people, these really aggressive mutual funds like Putnam and Van Kampen and all these different American funds, these different fund families that the company I worked for sold. And I sold some, but I didn't for whatever reason, I was a lousy salesman. Let's just put it that way. I suck at sales. I'm never going to sell anybody anything. I realize that now. That's why I had to tell myself, I convinced myself in a sales job that I'm not here to sell people. I'm here to help people. So that's why I had to convince myself of that just to stay in the business. So anyway, market collapsed. I couldn't last in that job at sales. So I went on to another national brokerage firm. So I moved to Cincinnati, mostly because I was a Reds fan. And I worked for this company there. It was a national firm. And I guess you can see my, if anybody looks me up on FINRA, you can see the bio and all that. And so I worked there. And as soon as I got in at that company, right after the tech bubble burst, they were trying to ramp up, knowing that the market would turn back. And I came in as a fully licensed broker then. And then 9/11 happened. And I'm like, oh man, so everybody starts getting laid off again. And I'm like, But I didn't get laid off. I had my job. I kept my job the entire time until I left that company to go on my own. So I started my own company with a business partner and a few other partners. We were going to actually launch a mutual fund. Well, right about the time we started doing that, guess what happened? 08 and 09. Like every time I would, like, so I have been like steeped in like the worst conditions that could happen. So I kind of like, part of my mindset is like, all right, I'm waiting on the other shoe to drop. But like, I know when these things get terrible, that's when I need all that money that under management we can get, because that's when people are going to make a lot of money for your investors. So it's kind of like one of those catch-22s. Yeah, I still hate sales, but I love what I do. And, so I don't like to sell anybody or put a hard sale. I just can't do it. I don't have a stomach for it. But helping people and helping like educate people, I think, is the best part about this job. So that's one reason I love coming on the show, because we can talk about these things and educate investors. I may do it at home, or then if you need help, call me by all means. But like every opportunity that things changed in the business for me was right when the worst economic collapse, like one was worse than the next. And but you learn the hard way, and you really learn some valuable lessons along the way about patience and striking while the iron's hot, opportunity, and kind of being a voice of calm in a storm. And that's kind of just the way, because of my timing in the business, I've kind of grown up in it.
I think that's so valuable because, when it comes to people's sustenance, their money, it's easy to freak out. It's easy to panic. And to have that voice of reason to say, no, this is actually a good thing. Buy low. Like, this is good. You're fine. That's really valuable to have somebody that's willing to educate and willing to be there. It can kind of feel like a sterile environment when you're first thinking, maybe should I, consult a financial advisor? No, maybe I can figure it out on my own. Oh no, I can't figure it out on my own. Now I'm 45. What do I do? So it's nice to have somebody like yourself that we can all call, and you can go to vistafrontpartners.com. Email you at jc@vistafrontpartners.com. And JC, thank you so much.
You're welcome. And maybe on a future show, I know, because I live in Virginia and work in Kentucky and Virginia, and I can still take clients from different places. But sometimes somebody may want to have somebody local, and it may be helpful to talk about what questions you should ask your potential advisor. Look at it like you're interviewing them too, because you don't want to just walk into any advisor and say, "Hey, I'm just putting my money here." It's important to know that you're a good fit for a person, and that person's a good fit for you. So maybe we'll do a show where we talk about some things you should look for in your advisor. Maybe that'll help people if they're going local and trying to find somebody.
Absolutely. I'm writing that down off to the side because I want to make sure that we do work that into the news next week. That would be a wonderful thing to, really very educational, powerful topic to talk about. I love that. Thank you.
Yeah, all right. Well, I certainly appreciate you having me back on. Thanks everybody for tuning in and listening to me for a while ramble, but I appreciate it. Hope everybody has a great Saturday and enjoys watching the Weather Channel on the East Coast getting pummeled. So that's my weekend.
I know it. Even we got a little dusting of snow, not enough to go play in. So the kids were a little, miffed about that. But I asked my middle daughter to go walk the dog early this morning, and she came back and she's like, "Oh, we have snow." And I'm like, "No, we have a little dusting on the car." And she's like, "But it fell." So I think they're out there doing a snow dance or something. They think more's coming, but it's not.
That's so funny. Hey, well, thanks again, everybody. I appreciate it. You guys have a great weekend. Elizabeth, you have a great weekend as well. And I'll talk to you soon.
All right. Sounds good. We'll see you soon. All right, everybody. So we're going to move into some news topics. But you know what? I did a little push out there, and I'm so glad that some people decided to take me up on the offer. And I hope that more and more will see how we do this. And maybe they'll like to do it for a loved one or themselves. Happy birthday. I put it out there on social media. And if you're watching the show and you don't follow me on social media, hey, that's great. You get to learn about it now. You can email us. I'm going to type in the email so that you can take a look at it. It is ecooperstudios@gmail.com. And you can send in your request for me to do a shout out. Maybe you have somebody in the family who's in the military, is a police officer, is a fireman, and you want to do a shout out. Send us, and here's your options. You can either send a 30-second video. MP4 is preferred. So 30-second video, a picture, or neither, but always include a message and what that message is. So I'm happy to read the message with a picture, or I'll show your video. And you can do a shout out there to anybody who's in the military, anybody who's in the service, that you would like to say thank you or wish them a happy birthday or happy anniversary or Merry Christmas or whatever. You can also send in your birthday shout out. So I do have a birthday shout out to share with you. And I want to do sobriety birthdays. I think that's really important. Several seasons ago, I interviewed a musician, and he has a sobriety story. So I wound up joining some sobriety groups on Facebook to learn more, to be able to share his story. And it's really quite inspiring to see that there is such thing as a sobriety birthday, and it needs to be celebrated. So if you have one of those, email us at ecooperstudios@gmail.com. That's ECOOPERSTUDIOS@gmail.com. And I'd really appreciate that. And one other thing that you can email us about, also send us a picture, send a 30-second video if you wish, either engagements or weddings. How about that? So many people of so many different pairings and types of people out there are getting married, and they're celebrating that. And I want to celebrate it for you just a little bit more by putting it on the show. So with all of that said, bringing to the broadcast is Mr. Frank Ruffalo. Frank A. Ruffalo. He is an author. He has been on the show. Let me get rid of my email because we all know what the email is, and you've written it down. Here is Frank. And the message for Frank is happy birthday. Happy birthday to you. He sends me a message saying, I just celebrated on the 19th my 74th year on this planet. Happy birthday, Frank. Oh my goodness, what a very special time. I am happy to celebrate that with you. And yes, happy birthday, Frank. Thank you so much for sending in a lovely picture and sending in a wonderful message. Happy 74th birthday. That is absolutely wonderful. I have some news from another very special friend of the show, Justin Peters from Platinum Planet Records. He would like to share, and I'm going to bring up his lovely picture that he shared with us. He has a new artist signed to the studios. So this is Justin Peters pictured with Derek Obanda. Earlier this month, Justin Peters of Platinum Planet Records in Nashville has signed Kenyan artist Derek Obanda, and as a executive songwriter to Platinum Planet Music. Congratulations. So he is now signed to Platinum Planet Music, Inc. through Justin Peters. Thank you so much for sending in that picture. Now I have a couple of cool, upbeat news stories to share with you. I'm always looking for fun news, happy news, something that everybody wants to hear about. This one's actually kind of funny. I chuckled, all right? So here's the picture that goes with the news story. And this is a flying car. All right, guys, you know me, right? I saw the picture. I saw the headline, flying car. How is this? Like, isn't that called an airplane? Have I fallen asleep, woken up in a different universe? Is this a new thing? I don't know. So let's go into the article here. They're calling it a flying car, I guess, because as you see, it also has wheels. So somehow, some way, they have some rubber on there. You can tell this is a virgin response here. I really didn't read into this article too much. I just pulled the information. How in the world do you have rubber wheels that are not going to have to be replaced every time you land? I mean, I know there's rubber on wheels, right? For airplanes. I don't know. I don't get it. All right. So the world's first proven flying car just received its airworthiness certificate by the Slovakian Transport Authority. Last June, this car deployed some mechanical wings and took off from a runway in Slovakia. It landed 35 minutes later. After it folded up its wings, the exotic-looking sports car drove off down the highway. All right, so that's kind of cool. I don't know if it's going to work so well here in the United States because we got some road rage. So I'm assuming you're going to have some sort of like speed, and then you up and you fly. And what are the lanes? How do you keep people from crashing into each other? I think that has been the number one question since we were kids. And if you're 40, you remember all the cartoons, right? Like it was a long tail of saying, oh no, we're going to have Visiphone and our cars are going to fly. Okay, so now we got flying cars, not called airplanes. And how are we going to teach people to stay in their lane? They can't stay in their lane through conversation, much less flying a car. Cool, but I think I'm going to pass. All right, so next up in the news, and that's the end of the news. This is a cool looking building, right? So this company turns 100 tons of non-recyclable plastic into building blocks for construction. And actually, surprisingly, these building blocks, and here's a picture of the building blocks. That's a picture of a building built with the building blocks. Here are the blocks themselves, kind of cool looking, very industrial. Like if you want to have bare walls and look at that in your loft, that would be pretty cool. But so recycling doesn't always mean chemically separating things into component parts or finding a new life for an old object, the article reads. An LA-based startup is proving that landfills need not be dug for plastic if one can merely smash enough of them together in like a Minecraft. They're using that trademark name, which is a very popular game, pixelated game that all of us parents are like, really? You want to play that? Like that looks like Donkey Kong and Burger Time that we used to play with our floppy disk in our computer, like full blown, desktop. And you want to play that? So anyway, they're saying that, that was the inspiration for putting these blocks together. They figured if it can be done with so much of our plastic that I don't think we realize, so much of the plastic out there on the market is not even recyclable. You cannot put that in your recycling can to be picked up. So composite blocks have advanced the world standard of living no end, but often they tend to be unrecyclable. So many mines are trying to develop thermal and chemical methods of separating the polymers in these materials to allow them to be recycled. Bifusion is the company who has decided to push these things, press them into very, very sturdy blocks that you can use for building. They're called bi-blocks. They are simple 16 by 8 by 8 shape and can be used to build bus stops, fences, retaining walls. Whoa, that's huge. Certain walls, public terraces, and more. And as you see, this looks like a bathroom in a park somewhere. So that is really a very cool application. I have a question. Can it be painted? Can it be stuccoed? Not too sure, but I'll read the rest of the article. A big advantage of the blocks is their indiscrimination. They turn every kind of plastic, even fishing nets, into blocks of some material property. The only thing that they can't tackle is polystyrene or styrofoam. Not 1 ounce of adhesive glue, mortar, or any kind of extra substance is used. If 22 pounds of plastic goes in, 22 pounds of plastic comes out. The machine came in 2 sizes, one for industry and another for community. The latter comes in a shipping container, while the former features an array of blockers for companies that can really crank out plastic waste. Very, very interesting. So kudos to you. That is a super cool company, and it's called Bifusion. Very cool. I mean, I am a huge proponent of recycling. As much as we can do to keep our footprint small, keep things out of our landfills. This is super cool, especially since all of our materials, our concrete and especially lumber, it has tripled and quadrupled in price at this point. Some of it, like, you just can't even get for months on end. This is really, really cool to replace that. Next up in the news, and here's another awesome story. And I'll tell you, there's so many things out there, so many news articles. My brain is going, so many news articles that really need to be out there and distributed more, because this is great news. And I've got to say, this has to have been in the main feed on our network channels. It has to have. So billionaire Mark Cuban opens up an online pharmacy to provide affordable generic drugs. Have you heard of this story? I'm dead serious. Have you heard of it? I hadn't, and I feel like I'm pretty up on the news. I listen to all of it, even some of it that I don't agree with. I still listen to it because I want to be open-minded. I haven't heard of this story. Mark Cuban has officially launched his newest venture, the online pharmacy Cost Plus Drugs. So Cuban support for Texas radiologist Dr. Owasemansky, who started a public benefit company to provide cheap pharmaceutical drugs. The launch comes just weeks after the company's pharmacy benefit manager operation was established. Both are efforts in the pursuit to help shield consumers from inflated drug prices. How flippin' cool. Thank you. Thank you. This man's a genius. I love Mark Cuban. Mark is quoted to say, "We will do whatever it takes to get affordable pharmaceuticals to patients, period." And that was actually said by the Dr. Alex Ozemensky, CEO of Mark Cuban Cost Plus Drugs. And I hope I'm not butchering your name, Dr. Alex. The markup on potentially life-saving drugs that people depend on is a problem that cannot be ignored. It is imperative that we take action and help expand access to these medications for those who need them most. And I love this story. So go look it up, go Google it and read more about it. Thank you so much, Mark Cuban. I can't say enough. I mean, there have been so many times where I'm standing in the line for the pharmacy and there's a little old lady in front of me and she's trying to check out, and her total on her medications, which I can only assume is a month's worth of medications, is $500, $700, $800. And I'm thinking, how on a fixed income are you even affording this? So thank you so much, Mark. All right. World's biggest kitty. There it is. Doesn't look too big from that angle. Oh no. Yeah, it's not Photoshopped. World's biggest cat. Meet the world's biggest cat, a kitty so large people think it's a dog. Actually, no, I would run scared. I think that thing is a lynx, not a dog. The oversized kitty belongs to Yulia Menina, who lives in a small Russian town. She bought kefir, named after the popular milk fermented drink, almost 2 years ago as a little Maine Coon kitten. Never heard of a Maine Coon kitten. And I suppose this is what it looks like. It is giant. Oh my gosh. So Yulia explains of her pet, "I can't imagine an ordinary kitten could become so big. He's very smart, though, and always behaves calmly." Oh, there we go back to the car. Those are all the pictures I have of kefir. So when friends and acquaintances come to the house, all the attention is on him. and he willingly allows himself to be stroked. But when strangers come to the house, everyone confuses him with the dog. Kiefer doesn't have one tricky habit. Sorry, messing up that sentence. Kiefer does have one tricky habit, though. At night, he likes to climb on Yulia and sleep. While he was a kitten, it didn't cause me any inconvenience, she says. But now he's so big, he's become heavy. Of course, it's difficult to sleep like that. Yeah, I think when you have a pet that is almost the same weight as you need to have some limits. That's what I'm going to say. All right, so there's Kiefer, the giant cat. Let's say hello to a couple of people. Hello, Michael. And hello, Joe. And hello, Jane. Thank you so much for watching the show. It's lovely to see you. I hope you're having a wonderful Saturday. All right, so next up in the news, I want to talk about a couple of new apps. It's the first of the year, and so many times there are brand new apps that will launch around the first of the year. And I also did a little digging in a direction that I'm excited for. Getting outside again, right? Northeast, right? You're being hammered with snow right now. And it's wonderful to sit and meditate and think about those wonderful months. April, May, June, hiking months, and bird watching months. Well, bird watching can happen in the snow, actually. I sit there and watch them all the time. So there are some really cool apps. And while we're talking about bird watching, let's go to the bird watching website. And here it is. So they actually don't have a website, but I'm going to bring this up solo so that you can see it. This is the Ipro Guide to Birds, which I found pretty cool. It says it's super easy to search for birds using different features, size, color, location, etc. It's also nice that they have both drawings and pictures of each bird, which really helps to correctly identify each species. That is super cool. I mean, call me a little bit of a boring geek there, but I really enjoy watching the flight patterns and enjoy my birds. So that is called the iBird Pro app, and you can get that today. You go to your app store and you can get the iPro Bird app. Okay, so let's talk about hiking maybe. There is an app, and this is touted as being brand new, but I've got to say, I think I have heard of it before. It's called Mountain Hub. All right, so this is the logo here of what Mountain Hub looks like. It's a yellow mountain, it says Mountain Hub below. That's how you're going to find it in your Google Play or your Apple App Store. Mountain Hub, all of us skiers, backpackers, climbers, and more use the same outdoor terrain. Mountain Hub lets adventurers of all disciplines post weather updates, wildlife encounters, snow and trail conditions, and full trip reports to the community, making it easy for you to find out what to expect before you head out. That is really super cool. I love that. Wildlife encounters. Wildlife encounters. One of my favorite hiking spots is really anywhere in Southern California. All of them. Maybe Runyon Canyon. I mean, all of it. Love it. But when I was a newbie, and I'm an East Coast girl, right? So I don't know too much about the West. When I was out there and I'm like, oh, wow, that's an interesting paw print. I wonder what that is. Yeah, it's a mountain lion. Yeah. My step got a little bit quicker. Let me tell you. So yeah, that's a pretty cool app. Now, who's fishing? All right. Any of us fishermen? I enjoy a little fishing. I can't say that I'm all that successful because I'm not educated about where I'm fishing and what I need to use to catch the fish. You know, apparently not all fish like worms. Didn't know that. So this is a new fishing app, and it's called FishBrain. So you can find FishBrain. It's available for iOS or Android. So you're going to be able to find that on your App Store, your Google Play Store. And FishBrain will allow you to pick out the perfect camping spot along before you cast off. If you're camping for the fishing aspect, FishBrain is the only app you'll need. Whether you're hoping to catch a few small fish off the dock with your kids, or you're looking to find the catch of a lifetime, FishBrain is the right app for you. This app allows you to join a large community of other fishermen who collectively discuss the best fishing spots, worst fishing spots, quality baiting tips, and more. With FishBrain's map, planning out the perfect fishing trip is super, super simple. That is cool. I am absolutely downloading that. I love fish. I love birds. I love fish. I have a rabbit in my kitchen. I love animals, right? All right. So last up, campsites. I'm looking forward to booking out my next RV camping trip. I really am. I love camping. I'm not a camper that's going to sleep on the ground. I mean, you can look at me and kind of tell I'm not just, I'm going to climb up in a tree with a jaguar and fall asleep. No, not an adventure camper. I'm an RV comfort camper, but I enjoy it. And that is what it is. But this is a cool app here. It's called Campendium. I had to take a second look at that name. Campendium. You can find this, again, it's available everywhere that you can get an app. Campendium is a great app for helping you and your crew pick the perfect place to pitch your tent. Campendium is an app that hosts a community of avid campers across Canada, Mexico, and the United States. Open your app and you can either use GPS or the search bar to find available national parks, campgrounds, and trailer parks in the surrounding area. Although sometimes limited by location, the app is filled with comments, discussions, and photos uploaded by other campers to help you select a site. Discover the highs and lows of any campsite using Campendium. That's definitely going to make you take a second look. And Campendium is spelled Campendium. Type it into the search bar for any apps that you are able to download on your device. So those are my 4 top picks of brand new apps. And this concludes the news. Everybody, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate your viewership. And I absolutely appreciate subscribing on YouTube to the Caffeinated Cooper Show channel. And also watch us as an Amazon Live Prime video, not live video, Prime video on Amazon. You can go into Amazon through the search bar and make sure you're searching apps and games, type in the Caffeinated Cooper Show, and boom, there we are. So everybody, thank you so very, very much. As always, we are blessed. You are blessed. Mwah! I love you. Have a wonderful weekend.